Good day. I'm Dr. Barbara Shannon Bannister, Chief of the Community Relations Division and the Executive Director for the Aurora Human Relations Commission. Welcome to our Channel 8 Forum. We've been doing this for many years just to bring you our perspectives on various topics, etc. I'd like to introduce our guests, and to my far right is...
My name is Maya Wheeler. I am the Chair of the Human Relations Commission.
And next?
I'm Paul Henrian. I'm a member of the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee.
Absolutely. And to my left?
I'm Kimberly Rivera, Commissioner.
This is our 29th commemoration. We are the only city in the nation that does a week-long of activities. We started on Sunday the 11th, and we'll tell you more about that a little later. But first, I want to tell you what the Human Relations Commission is all about. It was established back in 1968 in accordance with the Civil Rights Act, and we're supposed to be that connection between the residents of our city and City Council. Our Human Relations Commission is appointed by City Council and directly responsive to City Council. Now, there are other Human Relations Commissions around. You want to tell us about that, Paul?
Thank you, Barbara. Yep, there are actually 6. Let's see if I can get them all right. There's, in addition to Aurora, there's Boulder, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, Greeley, and Pueblo. Hopefully I can count to 6. They're all been established for quite a while, although Aurora's been around for a very long time, as you said. Aurora has the real benefit of being very strong with the City Council and being well recognized. And so we have one of the broader scopes for our Human Relations Commission, as will Kimberly talk about, and I'm slow here, Kimberly talking about here in a second.
All right, Kimberly, tell us a little bit, please.
Yes, thank you, Paul. The purpose of the Commission is to provide City Council with timely and pertinent information as to civil rights, social issues, and conditions within our community here in Aurora. We have 3 main duties, which are to study, analyze, and recommend to the City Council proposals for administrative or legislative actions which may be necessary to address human relation issues. Second, we issue to the City Council such publications and reports of investigations and research as appropriate and consistent with the duties and responsibilities of the Commission. And finally, within these bylaws, cooperate with federal, state, and municipal agencies and departments in eliminating prejudice, intolerance, disorder, and discrimination wherever and whenever they exist within the community. For example, discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodations. And we also initiate referrals to the appropriate enforcement agencies as needed.
We are empowered by ordinance to accept alleged discrimination complaints in those 3 areas: housing, public accommodation, and employment. Now, we are empowered only by our city to address those issues informally. We don't have the power to give punitive damage or other kinds of things. So every time we get a complaint and we can do it informally, we will do it. But if it's something that we think we can't handle it, we have a memorandum of understanding with the Colorado Civil Rights Division, and we refer those complaints down to them because they have investigators who do this every day, and that's their job, and they're much more proficient and efficient than we are, who only do it every so often. So we refer those discrimination complaints down to them. They make the determination whether or not it's for whether it was probable cause or not, and if it is probable cause, then they can give that person or those persons the option of being able to sue the entity that they are perceiving to be discriminated against by that group of people. So let's tell us a little bit more about what our Human Relations Commission does. Maya, you're the new chair. Tell me a little bit about your vision. Or am I getting ahead of you? But go ahead, and if I am, just go ahead and tell me what you want to say anyway.
Well, I'm just excited that we're celebrating Martin Luther King this week. And I was thinking, if he was alive, what would he say about the work that we're doing in Aurora in regards to his dream? And I think he would say we're doing a pretty good job, that, you know, we've made some good strides, but we have some work to still do, because it takes all of us coming together to make the dream work. And the commission has been doing some things. Earlier this year, it was brought to the attention of the Quality of Life Committee that the immigrants and refugees of Aurora needed a voice. And so a survey was done, and we found out that immigrants and refugees do really want to be involved. And so a task force was created, and the focus of that task force was governance and services. We've been meeting with these immigrant communities and refugees since July of 2014. We come together once a month, and we've been learning about them and their communities and what issues they have. We have some committees. We have an outreach committee, education, health, and legal. And Kimberly can tell us a little about the education committee, because she's one of the chairs of that.
Right, Maya. I am the chair to the English Learner Classes Committee, which is in addition with the Cherry Creek and Aurora Public Schools. We are looking to provide the Immigrant and Refugee Task Force and their members with a list of classes where they that provide free English classes,
for them, yes.
free opportunities, classes for them and their families to become better versed or well versed in English language. So we've done a lot of work with the Cherry Creek Public Schools as well as Aurora.
Yes, and we had two presentations, one from the Aurora Public Schools, which was a wonderful presentation about what they're doing to foster and to support the newcomers to our community. And we had one from the APS and from Cherry Creek. So, and then we're looking to bring in others to, we have resource people too, to bring in others who can help us be more supportive of the immigrants. The makeup of the Immigrant Refugee Task Force is because they're looking to be a commission, and one of the requirements for being a commission is that you are a resident of Aurora. So therefore, our task force members are all members and residents of Aurora, but we have all kinds of other people who surround them from other jurisdictions and other cities who bring resources to this group, from the hospitals, from the doctors, the legal department, the publicity department, the branding department, the television department. All of those other kinds of people help to support them in looking at what they want to accomplish. They are feeling that they need to be a commission to be heard by City Council, but I don't necessarily believe that's true, because I think anybody out there who's listening to us who want to be heard by City Council, just come to a City Council meeting and get that little form and sign up and stand up and say, I'm John Q. whoever, and this is what I want to say. So we don't always have to have a organized group, but it's nice to be an organized group so that you have people who support you in the things that you do. So what else is there to say about that? Can't you tell me about, is it the legal part?
The legal committee is off to a great start. And sadly there, as you know from the newspapers, too many legal issues these days and not enough of the positive parts that we'll be talking about more. But one of the issues that we have, or one of the plans that's coming out from the legal committee, is to have a legal day where there are kind of sponsored by a group to help advertise it, get people to come in, let them talk about their legal problems with people who have been briefed, again to maybe help them, but more likely to help refer, much like we talked about with the non-discrimination work that we do in the event of a complaint. So the process that they're going to use has been used very successfully in other places, and I think we're going to find that we have a great day, and it will be one of our first public events for the task force, which will be a great thing.
Well, that'll be very nice, and that's exciting, because what we hear from the recent visitors, not visitors, but recent residents in our in our community, they don't know where to get the information. They don't know how to access it. They're not in the mainstream. Here you are in a different country, and these people are speaking a different language, and they have all these different kinds of rules. And back in the country where I came from, government was not necessarily supportive of the everyday person. But Aurora wants to be supportive of the least of us, as well as those who come in with PhDs and all kinds of other accolades. We want to make sure that the little person feels like they can have a great quality of life here in the city. Is that right?
Yes, that is
Okay,
right.
tell me more then.
So we've been doing the Human Relations Commission does a lot of outreach, and I think Paul wanted to tell us more about that with our forums. And
there are a whole number of forums that the Human Relations Committee both has sponsored and has supported in a variety of different ways that are more a 1 or 2 day forum, something like this that we're doing this evening. And I think those have come across a variety of topics, and one of the things I know we heard from the school board was that there are 130 languages spoken both in the Cherry Creek schools and in the Aurora Public Schools, which means there's over 130 different communities in Aurora. And so the Human Relations Commission has its work cut out for it to figure out ways to bring all those communities together. And I know, as Dr. King said in a number of his speeches, bringing them together in the spirit of brotherhood, where the people are really learning to take advantage of all those different communities and learnings that people have had out of them, the customs and traditions, and put them all together to make Aurora an even better place to work.
And I'm just really excited about all the new members. I mean, Kimberly's a new member. Well, all three of you are new members. I'm the only older person here who's been around.
I think I qualify for older.
Well, I've been around for a long time, but all three of you are new members, and I'm just so happy. And you know, that's my dream. That when I get ready to pass the baton, you don't let it drop. That you pick it up and you keep running this race, because it won't be over, this race, until we all learn to live together and be supportive of each other and love each other. And because if we love ourselves first, and if we love ourselves and then we love each other, then the other things will fall into place. And we know that that was what Dr. King was teaching. We are the beloved community. He called us the beloved community. So we can't be the beloved community when we're scritching and scratching and not being kind to each other. So I'm just excited about your excitement. Kimberly was telling me how much fun it's been this week, and I said, well, how nice. It's been so much fun for you. And she was so excited and bubbly when she came in for our little repast before we came up here. And she just is really excited, and I'm just so grateful and thankful that you are a part of the commission, and of course both of you too, not just Kimberly, all three of you. So let's talk a little bit about forums. We intend to this year have forums for various groups of people. We will have a forum for the immigrant refugees. We may have one for only fathers, or only males, or only females. We will talk about some of the other kinds of forums that we'll have. We may have some just for political people, because we need to connect with our political people and make sure that they're including us when they're looking at the politics of our city. So, and what else can we do? What are the kind of things we can we do?
One of the things that I was excited about this year as a new commissioner was the community reception they had for the 4 finalist police chief candidates. And I was really excited to have had the opportunity to be in the community interviewing panel. I found that very eye-opening, and I really appreciate how the city asked our opinions on the candidates and let us ask them questions. I mean, and I know in the past we've done a community reception for the new police chief, and I'm hoping when we decide whoever the new police chief is going to be, that we'll have a community reception to welcome him to the community.
Or her.
Or her, yeah. Or her, yeah, that's right. It doesn't have to be a him, it could be a her. But yeah, I'm just really excited about that. And I really believe the city of Aurora is striving hard to work up to Martin Luther King's dream. But it takes more than just the city to work at that dream. It takes all of us, working together and participating in the city. And so that's what I like about being a commissioner. And I invite all of you out there listening to see how you can get involved in the city, because if you have an idea of how you think the city could work better, there's no better place than to be on a board and commission to do that. Because, you know, city council, the quality of life, and different committees have ideas, but we don't know everything, and we need everybody's input. So.
Absolutely, you're right. And then we have over 20 commissions and boards appointed by City Council. And all you need to, not all you need to do, you can certainly call my office, and I'm sure my phone number will be around, or you can go on the website and get the application form and make sure the city clerk gets that application form, and then choose which committees or boards that you'd like to be a part of. And we'll keep your name in the hopper, and as vacancies come available, we'll call you for interviews, etc., so that you can participate. I mean, this is your city. Yes. Don't let things pass by you that you would like to comment about or that you would like to participate in. Aurora belongs to all of us. It doesn't belong to the council. It doesn't belong to the Human Relations Commission. It doesn't belong to the police department. It belongs to all of us. We are all Aurorans. We are Aurora. Absolutely, every one of us. Is that right?
Yes.
And what else can we do? I know we're having all these activities, but that's the fluff.
You know,
we get down to business sometime. Go ahead.
When Maya brought up the police commissioner, and I did have a chance to talk to all 4 of the candidates as well, and found them all very, very knowledgeable, and particularly when I asked them about outreach and said, gee, you know, we've got 130 languages in all these different communities. And I think to a person, men and women, as you said, they all felt outreach was really critical. They thought that it shouldn't be just the commissioner coming out. It should be the regular beat officers out there as well, getting to know people. And I think we all know from recent events how critical that is, that we have those people get out there and do it. And I know you and I both attended a seminar where it wasn't just the local officials, it was state and federal.
That's right, absolutely.
That were getting out there as well, and recognizing both the need to get to know the different cultures, but also recognizing the risks that are out there, and particularly the risks to our children. And I think that helping people do that and recognizing that the world is a dangerous place, but that we, by working together, living together, and as you say, you know, living together in brotherhood and loving each other, are going to come up with a lot better result than we would if we don't.
That's right, absolutely.
And I do have to say thank you to the Aurora Police Department. They've been an integral part in helping us with the Immigrant and Refugee Task Force. A lot of times people come here from another country, and in their countries it's a scarier situation. Dealing with their military or their police doesn't always work out the way it does here. And so our police department has made it has been able to try and bridge a connection and make it easier to communicate with the Immigrant and Refugee Task Force and with members of the community, to let them know that it's okay, they're safe. They can contact the police department. They can, in case of an emergency, they can call an ambulance if they need one. And there's been other opportunities for outreach that the police department works with us, and it's been effective. So thank you to them.
Yes, thank you.
And you were going to mention something about the Welcoming Center?
Oh yes, the City of Aurora has a new Welcome Center. It's a partnership between Aurora Public Schools and the City of Aurora to welcome new immigrants and refugees to the City of Aurora.
And where is it located, do you know? Up on Peoria and 11th, I think it's going to be?
Yes.
What used to be the old Aurora Public School Administration building. And so this is an opportunity for us to have a venue where the various immigrant refugee communities can come together and have a place to meet, maybe have a place to have weddings, activities, or social hours, or whatever our immigrant refugees want to do, and to have some oversight and some support from both entities, our Aurora Public Schools and our city, in terms of the things they'd like to gather. Because we find that, at least I find in my diversity training, that the immigrant and refugees and people of color are more communal in terms of wanting to be around each other and wanting to congregate and to have fun together. So this will be a great opportunity for them at the Welcoming Center.
Yes.
And what else? You asked whether or not Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be happy about where we are. I think he would say nice to have all the activities and now nice to have all the fun, but what are we doing really to make a difference in our world? Are we really doing some things that will impact the everyday person? And what are those things that we're doing? We talked about having forums. We talked about the Welcoming Center. We talked about the Immigrant Refugee Task Force. What other kind of things can we be doing that will impact our community?
I think one of the things that I've been impressed with, both as a challenge, but then also the work that we're doing and that other officials doing, is in the area of children. And I know Dr. King, one of his favorite lines is when children will be judged by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. And I think that particularly in Aurora, that can be a challenge, and recognizing all the different cultures and clothing styles and everything else. You've got both the challenges in the schools, and we've certainly all heard about bullying that's moved from the playgrounds and the halls and still goes on there, but has moved out into social media and everywhere else in our very complex society. And so I think finding ways to instill those values in our children and having them both impact on their parents, but on school officials, on business owners, where we've seen challenges in the past in malls and whatnot, where people are thought to be loitering or causing trouble or whatever. There's plenty of challenges out there. And so I think if we can really get in and continue the great work that the Human Relations Commission's been doing in connecting with the schools, as you talked about, and then also connecting with business owners to learn about the children, but then have the kind of youth forums that we're having, have the kind of training that's going on in the schools, have the opportunity to have that work together to really instill the values in our children.
Absolutely.
And to build on the youth forum, tomorrow evening at the Fox Theater at 6 p.m., we're going to have a youth town hall meeting with the mayor, Steve Hogan of Aurora, and the interim police chief, and I believe a judge will be on the panel as well, and some youth. So they can come together and talk about why they walked out of schools back in December. And I think that'll be a good opportunity.
Go ahead.
We're going to talk about Selma later, but I wanted to say one thing about that in the schools. I think this town hall meeting is going to be really helpful, because in the movie that recently came out that we're going to talk a little more about later, one of the things that Martin Luther King said is that you have to negotiate, you have to demonstrate, and you have to resist, meaning you have to stand strong in your values or your beliefs, what you're fighting for. And this forum tomorrow is going to talk about, like, do you really understand why you walked out of school? Did you walk out of school because of the injustice, or did you walk out of school because you were just following your friend? And when you're walking out of school, like, what are you asking the city of Aurora to do? You know, you're just not, you have meaning behind this. So I'm really excited about the forum that we're going to have tomorrow night, and to hear what the youth have to say. And if the youth decided not to participate in the walkouts, why didn't they participate? Because as a person who's in their 40s, I didn't know that much about civil rights, and I didn't realize how important of a role that youth played in the civil rights movement. They were arrested with their moms, and they were out there. So I'm just very excited tomorrow night to hear what the youth have to say at the Fox Theater. Right. It's going to be a good night.
Which, by the way, I am looking for a youth commissioner for the Human Relations Board.
Right.
So I will be there tomorrow night with the commission, with the rest of us, and so please find me And if not, you can look on the website, www.auroragov.org. Look under the Boards and Commissions tab and look for Human Relations, and you can contact me there.
And you'll have some applications with you tomorrow
I
night,
will
won't
have
you?
applications with me.
All right, we'll make sure you have some.
And can I say one other thing?
Of
Because I'm
course.
so excited.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep saying.
Another thing I'm so excited about is the Human Relations Commission over the years has raised over $100,000 in scholarships for our Aurora seniors. So I just think that's great.
Senior, high school seniors.
Yes, high school
Not
seniors.
not a senior like me.
No, you're
Although,
called
okay,
I
all
was
right.
told you're called prime time.
Oh, all right. I like that. Prime time. All right, I like that. So go ahead, finish. I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just, I just think it's how you talked about making sure children are treated equally, not based on their skin color, and have the same opportunity. That scholarship fund provides those high school seniors that opportunity to use that money to pay for their books, some of their tuition, So I think that's great. And can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, over the years, we've been doing this for a lot of years, and we've raised over $100,000 over time. And it's not to the top students. The top students get all the offers, and to go to Yale and Harvard and all the elite colleges and universities. But we're looking for that person who has a decent average, but who is involved in the community. That's one of the key components, because we want them to be well-rounded. It's wonderful to have, and I'm not putting down people who are really, really the education kind of student. We're looking for that mixture, community, involvement with family, and involvement with academics too. So that, and we have an application form, and when we get to the point of raising some more money so that we can give a decent amount, because education is so expensive. I'm just so grateful that my kids have all passed all of that. And so, but it's so expensive, and books are so expensive. And so if we can help our Aurora Public School and Cherry Creek Public School seniors apply and get funding for for their education or books or whatever, that is just a real positive thing, a real injection of support to our young people in the community. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's happened all week. Let's start with on Sunday we had the C.C. Wyman's concert at the Colorado Community Church. It was very inspirational, good music, and we had the spoken word from two of our spoken word individual men, young men who can get up and just put it all together in the rapping like nobody's business. Just do it. And so that was Sunday. Monday, and I'm not going through the whole thing. You can jump in anytime you want. Monday was the press conference where the Mayor Pro Tem did the proclamation. Mayor Pro Tem Debbie Hunter Holen. That afternoon, what did we do?
So we had a praise and prayer supper.
All right.
Prior to us going down to City Council meeting at 7:30 to hear the proclamation for Martin Luther King to be read.
All right. Tuesday, we didn't have an activity here in Aurora, but down in Denver, we went to hear the Colorado Symphony, and that was just a beautiful evening, wasn't it?
That was a beautiful evening, and Dr. Bannister got a Lifetime Humanitarian Award. Very well deserved among some unbelievably distinguished company of other awardees, and not to mention the Flowbots, so that we had rapping going on with the symphony.
People wouldn't think that would match, but they did a great job, huh?
They did.
Yes, they did.
And then here we are on Wednesday. Today in the afternoon, my personal group, Grand Design, we did some blues at the Fox Theater, and on the bill with us was the Cleo Parker Robinson group. And I see our time is we needed to be really winding down. Thursday is the Youth Forum. You've already talked about that. Friday, what's happening?
The Aurora Community of Faith Breakfast.
The Community of Faith Breakfast at 8 o'clock here at the Aurora Municipal Center. And the tickets are $15. Saturday, we have a workshop in the afternoon in Martin Luther King Jr. Library. Saturday night. For resume
jobs.
Resume writing, etc. And job search. That Saturday night, the state is having their scholarship banquet. That's on Saturday. Sunday, the Denver Ministerial Alliance will have their interfaith service at Temple Emmanuel. That's 51 Grape Street. Then Monday, we are again with the Marade and the Yeah, the rodeo. The rodeo on that evening.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And we just have to end it right here. I want to thank all of you for being here. We appreciate you, Kimbra.
Thank you.
Kimberly.
Paul.
And Maya.
And Maya. Thank you so much. God bless, and thanks for watching.
There are many reasons why the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday is significant. One that's probably not thought of very often, but is perhaps most significant to our time and our place, is the fact that it's the only one in the latter half of the 20th century. We made it a national holiday at a time when television was coming of age, at a time when community service was coming of age, and at a time when it was much, much easier for people to interact with each other and talk with each other. I was a child of the 60s. I went to high school and college in the 60s, and I remember the activism and the enthusiasm and the involvement. I also remember the horrible sense of loss when we had a president, a United States senator, and arguably one of the most influential individuals of the 20th century all be assassinated. So the holiday is important. It's important to all of us for a variety of reasons. To pick one would be tough, but all of them are valid.
Hi, I'm Regan.
And I'm Leia.
The cookie business is a serious business.
It's the biggest girl-run business in the world.
That is so cool.
There are goals to set, decisions to make,
and money to manage.
It's a big responsibility and people are trusting us.
We've got to watch every dollar.
Track every order.
We've been doing this since we were Girl Scout brownies.
We've built on what works.
Check out our system.
We're learning to analyze our customer base.
Blue is friends and family, the green is new customers. 65% of our orders are from family and friends.
My Aunt Vicky has at least 20% of that.
She's a Girl Scout, so she totally gets it.
She owns her own company now.
Maybe I can work for your Aunt Vicky one day.
Or you can work for me.
The next 30 seconds can save you a lot of money. Just do your laundry in cold and stick to full loads. Auto-sleep your computers. Plug your gadgets in a power strip and switch it off when you're done. Headed out? Turn back your thermostat by 10 degrees. And drive sensibly. The more energy you save, the more money you save. Find other great tips at energysaver.gov.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers to help us better care for ourselves and the ones we love.
Cook foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer. 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Hello and welcome to Aurora's 29th commemoration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Today I'm joined by panelists from Aurora Public Schools. We're here to talk about how the school districts support our community. My name is Dr. Eric Nelson. I serve on the Board of Education for Aurora Public Schools. Now, to my fellow panelists, thank you all for being here. And if you can, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, starting with you.
So I'm Jessica Omirade. I'm the Director of Mental Health and Counseling for Aurora Public Schools. I provide support to our mental health and counseling teams.
Okay, thank you. And to my right?
I'm Bonnie Martinez. I'm the Dean of Students for Hinckley High School.
Okay, to my left.
And my name is Georgia Duran, and I'm a member of the Aurora Public Schools Incident Response Team.
Thank you, thank you. So I have a few questions, and each of you will have the opportunity to give your input. So what I'll do, I'll start with you, Jessica. Whenever there's a big event that impacts the Aurora community, we know that schools tend to be one of the primary points of contact for families. How do schools support the community during tragedies?
Well, you know, whenever our families or our students are experiencing a tragedy or dealing with a tragedy, or even just everyday situations that life brings forth, we want to make sure we're providing the best mental health care possible. So we do that by collaborating with community organizations such as Aurora Mental Health, which is a great community partner, to provide counseling support to those families in need, and then also to connect them with other community partners to provide additional mental health support and ongoing support.
Okay. And Bonnie?
So we do the same. So we appreciate the help that you all offer us, because when there's crisis, you definitely need that support of the mental health team. But in addition to that, like within Hinckley High School, we've developed a culture where our kids feel comfortable enough to come and speak to us. So we have discussions within the classrooms, discussions with one-on-one, but we like to believe that every student within our building has a trusted adult that they could go to and speak to at any time.
Okay. And Dr. Duran?
I think we have the Incident Response Team, which is a team that's comprised of members of the district support services as well as school staff. And so when we do have an incident or a crisis, the team convenes and we are there, and the whole purpose is to provide support to the school, and so that we are able to help school staff support their students, and then as well support their families. And so we partner with, like Jessica said, local agencies, the Aurora Police Department, Fire Department, the city's Office of Emergency Management, and local media, so that we can make sure that we keep parents in the loop and let our community know what's happening. Student safety is our top priority, and we want our students to be healthy and safe so that they can learn.
Absolutely. Great segue into the next question, and I'll start with you on this one, Dr. Duran. What are the biggest needs that we're seeing in our community, and how do schools help students outside of the classroom?
So one thing to remember is that Aurora Public Schools, we have 59 schools, and each school is like a microcosm of the city, and so each school will have different needs depending on the students and families that are in that school. And so we really try to work with individual schools to determine needs. They can range from, you know, we have students from more than 125 countries speaking more than 125 languages, so it could be something like providing translation and interpretation services. About 70% of our students are eligible for free and reduced lunch, so it could be helping families with food, helping families find resources. We have several homeless families. I mean, it could just really range. And then on the upswing, I mean, we also have families that are really concerned about student achievement. They want their children to be prepared for work and college success, and so we also serve that need as well.
Nice, and we're doing a great job in that. Okay, Bonnie, how about you?
Well, we follow along the same lines. So, of course, outside of the classroom, we have support that we bring into the school. So, for example, if there's any incidents that we feel like there's been conflict or harm created within our school, we bring the parents involved, we get the community involved, we have teachers involved. So we all come together to listen to the voice of the child to make sure that even though we might think we know what's going on within their mind, we know exactly what they're telling us. And we're not only hearing what they say, we're listening and hearing and acting based on the information that they truly give us, as well as the family. So we try to bring the whole community together to help the student.
Nice. Jessica, what about your thoughts?
So we're seeing an increased need for mental health support, and I don't think that's unique to Aurora. That's a trend we're seeing across the country. But in Aurora, we're very excited to be able to offer supports and services, not just to our students who are identified as having difficulties in that area, but also providing staff to support those that haven't necessarily been identified as having a mental health issue currently, so that we can work on the prevention side and provide supports and skills necessary for children to reach their goals and high expectations that we have for them academically as well.
Okay. Which leads to the next question. Recently, we've seen a lot of media attention about race and students protesting when it comes to the Ferguson events and the Mike Brown incident in New York. How do schools talk to students about difficult topics like that?
You know, I was able to speak with one student in particular after the day of those events, and he was able to talk very clearly about why he decided to walk out, what he was going there to do, and what he hoped to gain from that, what he hoped to see the rest of us gain from that. And so I think one of the biggest things that we can do as a community isn't to talk necessarily to our students, but listen to them, because he provided me with a lot more information than I could have provided him.
Okay.
For sure.
What about you, Bonnie?
To piggyback off of that, I think some of our students, they weren't even sure, but they wanted to react based on their emotions. So we had discussions within the classrooms to talk to our students. We had our SROs come into the classrooms so they could see multiple perspectives on the situation. And it was just it was even a little something that we weren't sure what we were going to expect, because they had a set time that they were going to walk out and so forth. But so we were prepared within the hallways to for all this activity to take place. But when the kids started walking out and they walk right towards the trusted adults that they always go to for help, they're just we're like, okay, just make sure you're safe, be careful, do the right thing. And then they just decided, I'm just going to get a pass and go back to class. Right. So that was something that we weren't quite prepared for. We thought we were going to get the multitudes coming out of our building and doing that. But those that went were very informative. They were very informed in what they were doing, and they felt that we listened to what they were doing, and that served their purpose.
Okay, Dr. Rand?
I think it's important to remember that not just these recent issues, but like I said, we have students from more than 100 different countries. So race and equity are constant conversations in Aurora Public Schools, and we believe that our diversity is our greatest strength. If you talk with students, they'll mention they're studying something historical or something with civics, and right there in their building they can find students who have lived many of the experiences or come from the countries that they're studying. And so what I think is important to remember is that our staff are talking with students about social issues, about race, about equity every day. That's a normal part of our conversation. With regard to the recent protests, many of our principals and our teachers engage students in dialogue. like Jessica said, we wanted to listen. Now, we certainly hoped that they would not walk out of school because we believe that every moment of classroom instruction is important, and many of our students did not. So we also collaborated to provide students with other opportunities to share their perspectives and their views, because we definitely respect their right to have a response and feelings about something. And I think it was really successful, and it's just broadened the conversation. Even now at some of our schools, the conversations continue.
Mm-hmm. So overall, you feel the students are being heard?
Absolutely. I think that not only with this, but I mean, we, as you know, are in the process of finalizing our strategic plan. The board will take a vote on that next week, and we engaged our entire community, including students, on the strategic plan drafts, because, I mean, we exist for students and we want to hear what they think and we want to support them. Their success is the reason we exist.
Okay. Well, that leads me to my final question. What are some of the most difficult challenges that the Aurora Public Schools community has dealt with?
Well, one that stands out is the theater shooting that happened, 7/20, if you will. We had many students and staff members who were at the movie theaters that evening, and it's something that I think was a challenge, but I believe that from that we really grew. And I think we became more proactive about talking about incidents with students and also really assessing the mental health supports and all the other wraparound supports that we want to provide our students. So I think it was a valuable instance, and many of my friends who are in the classroom said that the fact that they could talk with their students and say, oh my gosh, what happened, let's talk about it. Students felt like they cared and that they understood our community.
Thanks, Bonnie.
I would have to agree with that. Our school is very unique in itself, so we were well prepared for such things. And I think because we do have those relationships already and we already established that within our school culture, that our kids, I don't think that we had more kids that were affected by it than any other high school, but they just felt more comfortable about talking about it. Our teachers opened it up to classroom discussions so we could get, we could hear everyone's feelings about it. And those students that were directly involved, that were right there when everything took place, we had additional support from mental health and from our counselors and from others throughout the building. And even to this day, we're still checking in on our students and making sure that their well-being is our top priority. So some things might trigger that same event, so we're always there for them. Our doors are always open for them to continue to feel that they could come and talk to us at any time, and that's going to be something that takes time to heal.
Right. Jessica?
Yeah, I'd like to pick off of what you said, because with the trial coming up and jury selection starting on Tuesday, we are, as a community, aware that that's occurring, and we're making sure to check in on our students that were directly or indirectly affected by that tragedy, and we're engaging our community partners to make sure that we're providing the supports we need to continue to provide. I would say another challenge is, because we are blessed with great diversity, the challenge to us then, especially in mental health, is to make sure that we are speaking with kids and taking their background into account and building off of that so that we can build social, emotional, behavioral skills that they need to achieve high academic success and also reach personal goals.
Okay. So overall, how we look at APS is a very strong support system to the community. What would your final thoughts be?
My final thoughts are just that I'm proud of us as a district for being able to reach out to our community partners, being able to have students on our committees, not just for that, but we're building a new P8. Students and families are on that committee. We're looking at revamping some programs, and we're making sure that students and families are engaged in that. So I just like that we're giving everybody a voice so that we're building a school that everybody can be proud of and feel like a part of the community.
How about you, Bonnie?
I'm happy to say that, like, we look at our students as being individuals. We don't try to put a blanket approach on any of them. They all have individual needs. You know, some of our students are homeless, so we take those issues into account. We don't try to look down on kids if they're not coming in with supplies, or we provide jackets, we provide food, we trying to provide transportation for them. Just having those conversations every day are so valuable, so rich, because if you don't communicate with the kids, you never know that the reason they're late every day is because they're riding the bus for an hour, or they didn't even eat the night before. So just having that knowledge, and to be able to give them a granola bar, or to be able to give them a jacket, or to be able to give them a bus pass, those things to us may not seem, you know, as just something that we do, but for our kids, I mean, that gains miles with them, and then they just continue to come back. Every time you open the door for one student, for one parent, for one family, they are a tight-knit community. They'll continue to come back. They'll continue to talk. They'll be at your door every time, and we're there to help them every single time that they need help, regardless of the situation. Even when it's a situation within the dean's office, that's not always something that it's a pleasant situation, but they leave thanking you for helping their student to realize their actions and to go forward with that.
Thank you. Dr. Duran?
I think it's important that our community know how responsive we are to it. Our strategic plan is definitely something that our community has provided to us, but that there is room in every school for community members to come and join us supporting our students, volunteering, tutoring, reading to elementary kids. I mean, there's so many opportunities for community members to join us and to be part of the team that supports our students who are our future.
Nice. Well, again, I want to thank you all for joining us in this important discussion. And to our TV viewers, I want to thank you for tuning in. And I want to leave you with this. I'm reminded by a quote by Dr. King. He once stated that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in the times of challenge and controversy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in those times right now. Our world, our nation, our community is facing those challenges. Let us continue to work together as a community, because as I'm reminded by Aurora's motto, united we stand. Schools and community work together. And I have high hopes that we'll continue to work together, making Aurora and our community a safe haven for our children to accelerate in their learning each and every day. Until next time, be blessed and thank you.
When I think of Dr. Martin Luther King, I think of his I Have a Dream speech in 1963 that really, I think, set in place the civil rights movement as we know it today. And then when I think about current events just in the last few months with Ferguson and in New York, I think, well, what happened to Dr. King's nonviolent philosophy? And I think that that's really what we need to go back to. Dr. Martin Luther King, of course, was all about accomplishing things in a nonviolent manner, and then we have these incidents, like I just mentioned, that really go against that whole philosophy. And so I think that we need to get back to that. And then I look at the demonstrations in Aurora. Some of the Aurora schools students went out on demonstrations and walked to either the city building or different venues, and they did it in a peaceful manner. They were not destructive. They did not yell or do anything against the law. And so I really appreciate the students when they did their demonstrations. I may not agree with them from leaving school, but I do think that the way they handled their demonstration was great. They just did it in a nonviolent manner. It's all about what Dr. King was talking about. And of course, the city has all sorts of celebrations and commemorations with the mayor doing a proclamation. and we have a free concert. We have a parade. People can walk from the city building all the way down to Denver City Park. So there's a lot of things going on with Dr. King's commemoration. And so I just want to say thanks for letting me speak. And again, Dr. King was a great person, and I wish we had more of him around.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
So they say it's a man's world? Well, I don't see anybody's name on it. While they were out doing their thing, we slowly changed all that. We changed all that. Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Checking your fantasy league?
Nah, just my 401k statement.
Nice. Where'd you find the money for that?
I've just been saving a little every month.
I can't seem to save anything.
Well, what about all this? What about the money you're spending?
What money? It's gone before I can get my hands on it.
I got a pizza for a Todd.
Hey, can somebody spot me?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind.
It's 547.
Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Son, tell him that I've begun to dream of things to come, and tell the trees not to look for me. I'm going to find some peace of mind. Wake the sun. Wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Regan.
And I'm Leia.
The cookie business is a serious business.
It's the biggest girl-run business in the world.
That is so cool.
There are goals to set, decisions to make,
and money to manage.
It's a big responsibility and people are trusting us.
We've got to watch every dollar.
Track every order.
We've been doing this since we were Girl Scout brownies.
We've built on what works.
Check out our system.
We're learning to analyze our customer base.
Blue is friends and family, the green is new customers. 65% of our orders are from family and friends.
My Aunt Vicky is at least 20% of that.
She's a Girl Scout, so she totally gets it.
She owns her own company now.
Maybe I can work for your Aunt Vicky one day.
Or you can work for me.
Good day. I'm Dr. Barbara Shannon Bannister, Chief of the Community Relations Division for the City of Aurora, and I'm the liaison to the Aurora Community of Faith. Welcome to our Community Forum on Aurora 8. And to my far right is?
I'm Pastor Thomas Mays. I'm pastor of the Living Water Christian Center in North Aurora, and I'm a board member on the Victims Witness Advisory Board, KCRT for Aurora. I was born and raised right here in Denver, or I should say Colorado, in the Denver area. So I went to school here. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I've been pastoring now for 25 years and been in ministry for about 37 years.
Well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Next to my right?
I'm Pastor Miriam Rosa, New York Rican, Puerto Rican parents. I'm from the South Bronx. I've been in Denver on and off for 20 years or so, and I am the pastor of the City of Refuge Restoration Church, which is housed in Colorado Christian Fellowship, and I'm also the founder of the Healing Connection International, dealing with addicted adult males and their families. I have been in ministry for over 40 years, pastor's kid, church planter, and in the last 3 years have been pastoring the City of Refuge Restoration Church. I'm a mother of 2, grandmother of 6, and great-grandmother of 1.
Oh, well,
And,
wow.
Yes, and 3 of my youngest grandchildren are autistic, and that's kind of made a lot of things very interesting, and set us in to a whole different community, which we are grateful to the Lord in the midst of all things to be in.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And welcome.
Thanks.
And to my left?
I'm Pastor Ron Frierson from Heart for the World Christian Center. I've been in ministry for about 26 years. You know, I've been very active in the community. We do lots of outreaches in terms of feeding the homeless, helping people, build people, lift people. We believe in building people one person at a time. And I've been married for 28 years, coming up on 29, have 3 lovely daughters that also work with us in ministry.
Well, welcome to all of you. And I know you mentioned Denver, but this is Aurora, isn't it?
This is Aurora.
All right. I just want to make sure they know this is Aurora.
And I've been in Aurora now since 1982, so Aurora is my home.
All right, all right. And I know you were there when the Aurora Community of Faith was born. And where did that happen?
Well, we were started over at Aurora Hills Baptist Church on Alameda, just down the street from Aurora Mall. And I think a lot of it started from the Aurora Mall incidents we had back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a long time ago, and we met in that church for quite a while. And
yes.
it was a new beginning, and it was a great beginning. Our city, and I keep telling the Aurora Community of Faith people, you have the audience all the time. You have that audience, and you meet with your people more than any commission, board, committee, or anything else.
That's true.
And your following accept and hold you in high esteem in terms of what you're teaching them spiritually, and then when you share the everyday kinds of things that are happening in our town, in our city. So therefore, you have that command audience all the time, and we're grateful for you. You are the powerful ones. You're the ones with the power because you've got the people behind you. So don't forget that. I keep telling you that. Do not forget that. Reed Heddick is he's the pastor of the Mosaic Church.
Yes.
And he is the chair of the Aurora Community of Faith and doing a fantastic job. In fact, the annual breakfast will be coming up, and we'll talk about that later. And but I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew he is not here tonight. He wanted to be here but could not be here. But he's doing a really, really good job with the Aurora Community of Faith. And he wanted to make sure that you talked about, in terms of what's going on locally, statewide, nationally, that we talk about what's the church's role? What's the church doing? And talk about it from a spiritual aspect. So who wants to take it on first?
You know, I believe that the church's role should be right up front. You know, I mean, first and foremost, we know Dr. King as a political activist, as, you know, a social activist and whatnot, but he was a preacher. He was a man of God. And so his roots, and I believe that what really drove him was his relationship with Christ. And I believe that we need to be men and women of God from every spectrum, every color, you know, that would just come out and just begin to encourage the people to move forward, inspire them to believe again, inspire them to have hope, inspire them to get up. You know, what comes to my mind is Hebrews 11:1, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Some people have lost hope. They've lost faith. And we need to point them in the direction and help them build their faith again so that they can move forward.
All right. Comments, everybody can just join in.
Well, you know, I agree with Pastor Frierson. One of the things that's lacking, the scripture says, faith without works is dead. And so a lot of the faith community, regardless of what religion or denomination, they have a lot of faith. But sometimes we fail to put the works behind it.
Yes, sir.
We're confined within those four walls, and we forget that that's a place of worship. That's not work.
That's
work
the
is
filling station.
Right. And so once we leave there, we forget about there's work to be done. So a lot of work has been left undone. The scripture reminds us, especially, and I'm from the baby boomer generation, and I fault us in a lot of areas because the scripture tells us spiritually to be as harmless as doves and as wise as serpents. I don't think we've been as wise as we could be, and I don't think we've been as harmless as we could be because we're not very accepting sometimes. So I think the role of the spiritual world, the faith community, is to be wiser and to be more gentle in accepting change. We don't change the message, we just change the method. Sometimes we have difficulty differentiating between the two.
Okay, all right. I like that. Not the message, but the method.
The method.
How it's delivered.
Right.
Because it's not delivered the same way it was delivered to my parents.
Exactly.
And the young people they are not listening to it that way either.
Right.
I got you. I like that message and method. That's pretty sharp there. But that's why you're a minister, I guess, huh?
Well, as we always say, it's all about him.
All right.
He always lets us know.
That's right.
There's some things we have to change, and we're losing a generation. And now, as a baby boomer, there's several generations behind me, and there are children raising children. I still run into a lot of young people that have never been inside a church. They haven't had that experience. And especially when you talk about the minorities and the African American especially, it's a strange thing to run upon African American child who has no true understanding of church. And I think it's because we haven't been as wise and as consistent. We had church in had church in a silo, and we just thought we could just pray and have faith and everything would work out. Well, it hasn't worked out as well as it could have because we failed to work on the outside. We failed to do the things to keep up with the changing generations, the changing mindset. We're in the age of technology, and a lot of churches have not kept up with the technology, so they can't communicate. Communication is key. Look all the way into the President Obama's election. It was done through technology.
That's right.
It was done through technology, and the churches, whether it be lack of money or lack of desire, have failed to keep up technologically.
You know, I really think that sometimes it's not of a lack of money, but just sometimes it's just the lack of knowledge. You know, they don't know how, and so therefore there's a frustration. And so one thing that we, the church, must do, we must begin to engage and to pull in people from every age group and begin to empower them. You know, we need young people in the church, and we need to put them in a position where they can be used.
That's right.
You know, and we need the other generations to still be engaged to help show them that mentoring, because there's a pattern, if you will. There's a ultimate goal, but the reality is that we've got to bring them along.
That's right. That's right.
You know, the older men need to pour into the young men. The older women. See, this is what I come to find. When we look at this generation, we find a generation that is very, very lost. There are many men who don't know how to be men. They're struggling with their manhood. There are women who don't know how to be women. And thus, you know, they're struggling with trying to come into their own. And we need to get to the place that we can empower them and help them. Thus, many of them have lost hope. You know, and I've had so many people come into my office here recently, and it is, some of the stuff is just like what you would see in the worst movie. And I'm thinking, my God, this is today. Yet, we have to get dirty. We have to allow our hands to get dirty. We have to get down in the nooks and the crevices. And why do we preach from a pulpit? To pull them up out the pit. We got to get down there and pull them up.
Well, I'm listening and I'm agreeing with all the different things that we as pastors and as leaders and as a church need to catch up with.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that I see real clear is that in all that catching up, excuse me, we're leaving out the spiritual aspect, if you will, of prayer. And I'm not talking about praying just during the service or when we're in need. I'm talking about campaigns of prayer. I'm talking about deliberate, while some are doing, others are praying. My great-grandmother used to say, orando y con el mazo dando, which is we're praying while others are doing what has to get done. And I believe that in all of our learning, trying to keep up with this and that and the other, we're forgetting that as people that believe in Jesus Christ, that believe in Jehovah, we're seeking again for answers, but are we really going to the Lord in prayer, in deliberate prayer, to get our marching orders, so that when we do go out to do all these different things that have to get done, that we should be doing, that we should be making the adjustment. Pastor Mays, it's like you said, the methodology of presenting the message has to change, but the message does not have to change.
It should not change.
Should not change.
Yeah, we can't compromise.
You know, God is relevant, was relevant, is relevant, will continue to be relevant. So it, as simple as some people may see, well, yeah, we need to include prayer, but in my understanding, I mean, I have known of places in other countries where there have been drug cartels and what have you have wanted to take over a town, and the people have gotten together to pray. And those cartels have had to move. I don't know if God's going to do it that way amongst us, but we need to be deliberate
Yes, ma'am.
about prayer. And again, not just as a last resort, but as our first resort.
As our first resort, and not just going and saying, God, would you, but asking God, speak to our hearts.
Exactly.
We need to hear what God wants for this place, for this people, for this time. And when He does, then we have our orders, which gives us the determination to be able to stand against whatever may come our way.
Because stand we must.
And you know, the thing is, a lot of times, and that's so true, a prayer is essential. I think one of the problems are, and our young men don't see it, they don't see the men praying. It always falls on the women to pray.
Right.
And if we could get men who would pray, the Bible says that the fervent prayer of the righteous availeth much. But it wasn't just speaking of the women. The men, if they would humble themselves, the scripture says, you know, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray, the men need to pray.
Excuse me. And this is why I talk about something deliberate, something intentional, where it wouldn't be about, well, you know, we're praying about this and not organizing. I'm talking about organizing groups where, okay, men, we're inviting you.
Yes.
Okay, or we're inviting you not just to come, but we're inviting you to lead this effort.
That is,
okay?
And you're right. You know, we have to invite the men, and they have to receive the call.
Exactly.
Many are called, but few are chosen.
That's
They
right.
have to receive the call, and then they have to begin to realize, you know, we've had the pleasure of having a baby in our home for the last 10 months. And while he's been there, I noticed that he responds differently to me than the women in the household.
Sure.
And sometimes they're doing something and I'll walk by and he'll try to look around them and he'll follow me around with his eyes. And so it helps me to understand, and you can do this anywhere, but there's something about the men.
Sure.
If we will stand, it does not take away from the women, because we applaud what they have done. We applaud not only what they have done, but what they continue to do. But men need to step up and begin to take their place.
Step up and step out.
Yes, sir.
Get out because it has to affect the community. We can pray within, but we need to penetrate our communities with prayer. I love to get in a situation where they say, well, can you give us the opening prayer? I realize that how important that is. It may be just a few seconds, but sometimes we are the only connect that the young people have. We're the only connect that these adult 20, 30-year-old men have, because the majority of them didn't have a father themselves.
They came from a broken home, to be a man.
And there's no book to tell you how to be a father.
Yes, sir.
But through prayer, he says, I'll teach you all these things. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, or his rightness.
Yes, sir.
And all these things will be added, including teaching you how to father a child, how to be a good husband. But I don't believe our young people have the examples because they're hidden inside the church.
You know, and you're right, and sometimes that they're not. You know, there are some that are hidden inside the church. There are some that are just sitting back,
and then some that's kept from them, because sometimes
exactly
when as a older woman in the church, and as you know, I tell the women outnumber the men all the time.
Always have.
And I say if we stop coming, there would not be any church.
That's right.
You'd be in there. I mean, because we do all the things, and you do the things too. But I find sometimes older men don't want to let go. They don't want to let go of it. They don't want to mentor.
Passing the baton.
Well, as you said, in terms of the Obama campaign, the technology, they don't want to let go and let these young people can get in there and do that stuff. That's like this. They can run that soundboard.
And that's when we pray. we could pray while they're doing these we have to be wise. Get whatever they do. You can get a pimp off the street and turn him into a tremendous businessman.
That's right.
Because he knows business.
That's right.
He may be doing what's wrong. See, one of the greatest things I teach people all the time, we are at fault for not being good stewards over our freedom.
That's right.
We have the freedom to do so many things. Also, we have the freedom to do wrong. And because of that, they take that freedom. So we have to demonstrate, and we have to be wise enough to say, hey, what are you doing out there? How can we bring that? When God found Saul, who later was called Paul, he was persecuting the saints.
Yes, sir.
And what did God do? God says, hey, I can use that. A person with that kind of passion, all I've got to do is bridle. It's much like Absalom had great passion, but it was misguided. If you can put bridles on your passion and bridle that in the right direction, we can make a difference in our communities.
And that's what I see happening in some of the mega churches, that if they're a cook on their job, come into my church and work in the kitchen.
Yes.
Yes.
Bring your expertise where into and do not be critical that they have to be what you call holy.
Right.
Before you give them the responsibility.
It gives you something to pray about.
That's right. That's right. You give them some responsibility and you help mentor them, and they'll help build your church.
That's right.
So again, the prayer is about doing the fundamental work, getting the marching orders, and then all these different things have to get done. All of these changes, all of these adjustments, all of these different things have to get done. And when I think, and I'll be 66 next month, and the younger I get or the older I get, I think more about what is it that I should not be trying to do that I used to be able to do, so that I can do what it is that I'm able to do now to be effective. And the more I think about that, and the more I deal with that, the more it puts me in a position to pass that baton on and to do more of the teaching and to do more of the training and what have you for those behind me to come along. And as a female pastor, and I want to say about the male situation, that authority piece, that's a responsibility, and that's very, very powerful, and it's very, very necessary. In our society, our men have been emasculated, the Latino men, the black men, men in general. A lot of the roles and the aspects of responsibility have just been taken. And so we need to reevaluate what all that means. As a female, I'm not, at this point in my life, because the Lord has done a lot of healing, I'm not intimidated anymore, but there was a time. There was a time, and now we've kind of gone the other extreme where the men, for the most part, really don't know where they stand, what their role is. And I believe that it's the responsibility of the religious leaders, of the men and women of God, to bring clarity to that. And all of these different things that are going on in our society right now, it's not in the church itself that is going to be handled, but it is through teaching and being vessels of healing and wholeness for individuals and for families, so that what goes on at home will be different. Because yes, we can talk about the systems and the flaws, but we also have to deal with what's happening in the homes.
That's right.
So it's not one-sided. And again, I keep on going back to prayer, not prayer with our agenda, but prayer before God. Lord, what is your agenda in all of this?
Prayer and praise.
Prayer and praise. God, what do you want? What do you want?
The Bible says the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. We have to understand the men and women in the church now have to become more legacy-minded.
Yes.
With Dr. King, that's one thing that he left. The greatest thing he left was his legacy. What a great legacy he left. Yes. There's you can find characters in the Bible who didn't leave much of a legacy, you know. And many of us, there was a song, I think it was Temptation, says, when my father left me, all he left me was alone.
That's right.
Yeah,
And
Rolling
many
Stone.
of us,
Rolling Stone.
Papa was a Rolling Stone.
That's
you know?
right.
And many of us, whether we realize or that, that's how we are, because we're not leaving anything behind. I'm not talking about money, inheritance, but what wisdom are we leaving behind? What things are we teaching them that they can carry on and give to their children? I tell you, the Bible says, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And then there is another saying that's not necessarily biblical, but it says, if people don't know their history, they're bound to repeat it. And what we see going on throughout our nation right now is things that's happened back in the 60s. But the people who are doing it don't really understand what went on in the 60s and what affected left, how long it took us to rebuild and come back together as a people. And because they don't know their history, they're repeating it.
Without question, one of the things, you know, that we, you know, need to be mindful, or at least to kind of sum this concept up, is that as we bring this next generation along, we need to teach them, we need to train them, and then trust them.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
And that's one of the
Train
great
and
parts,
trust.
because, and I think a lot of pastors, we have a problem of the release. We don't know how to release. We train them, we get them, and we just want to hold on to them. We don't want to release them, but they all have such a gifting inside them. We don't put the gift in there. God puts the gift in there. Our job is just to make sure it comes out. Because I tell people at the Living Water Christian Center, even a child has something for you. So listen. Be a better listener than you are a speaker. You have one mouth, 2 ears. You ought to hear twice as much as you speak. Because everybody has a gift, and we stir up that gift in them. And we have some people out there who are gangbanging right now, has some great gifts in them.
That's right. Sure.
That's why the graveyard is one of the richest places in the world, because it all died and they took it to their grave with them. And we need to get it before they get it there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to mention one thing before I forget it, and I didn't mention it before. The quilts you see behind us, and all churches usually have stained glass windows, etc. And this is our representation from the Wajinaji Quilt Guild. And you just, when you think about the quilts and you think about how our grandmothers and great-grandmothers used to save those little scraps and put them together and make the quilts for our beds and stuff, but these are just so precious and so beautiful, and I just wanted to just mention how these are our stained glass windows behind the clergy and the community of faith members. Just want to tell, are there any specific things? Are you engaging in conversations at your churches about what's happening in our world today?
Sure.
You know, without question, you know, we're definitely engaging in conversation. You know, our church is Heart for the World, and we believe that the name should reflect the nature. So we have a heart for all the people, and we encourage them to go out and to empower everybody to come together, not to just be gathered, but to be assembled, so that we can move forward as a force.
Okay.
Right. Part of what we do is, again, my church is a beginning church. So we do a lot of basic teaching but we concentrate a lot on the principles of Jesus Christ, and the inclusiveness, and the inclusiveness without denying or moving away from the truth of the gospel. But because Jesus, it was about love, and it was about redemption, it was about restoration, and so it's about the mindset of accepting people, not the sin, not the wrong things, but accepting people.
All right. Okay.
And so
that's amazing.
And we're spending time listening, and we're asking the young people to speak to us, speak from their heart, because sometimes we always want to give them what we think they need. I think it's much like they did the African American coming through the civil rights movement. We're going to give you this, but they never stop to ask us what we need. So we're asking, we're having several forums this month, just asking the young people, what is it that you need? What do you think a church is? What is the responsibility of church? And getting them to understand we're there to empower you, not enable you. And teaching them the difference between enabling them and empowering them. Because we want them to be able to do it themselves.
And you said some things, the message and the method. that really rings with me, because I think in my church and in many churches, the message is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But it's the method, and I thought that was really, really wonderful. And you said 3 things too that we should be concentrating on. Do you remember what?
Teach, train, and trust.
Teach,
Yes.
train, and trust. And not hold on to it. When you teach them and train them and get them flying, let them go.
Let them go.
Let them go and let them
And
get
be
out
there
here.
for 'em to
That's
catch
right.
'em.
And
Exactly.
mentor.
That's
Don't and encourage them to use their technological senses
Yes.
in our churches. That's what we need to get up to speed.
Yes.
We don't want to sit on hard benches anymore. We want cushions in the seats. We want an organ. We want a piano. We don't want to just clap to the music.
And we want a feel-good message.
Lord
A
have
feel-good
mercy.
message.
Lord have mercy. Oh, yes, indeed.
But we have to be like the
remember to
eagle.
pray.
You know, the eagle, when he gets ready to teach up the little ones to fly, he'll take them as high as he can and just drop them.
All right, I understand. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. This is a part of our 29th annual Martin Luther King Jr. commemoration, and you all have always been there from the beginning, especially you, Pastor Mays. Thank you. God bless.
God bless you.
And
God
thank
bless.
you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Martin Luther King had a dream that was inspired by the Creator, a vision for the future and what the future should be. What better place should the civil rights begin than in our free nation, where people of all colors and creed shed their blood for our freedom. The 1960s was an exciting time. Here on our state capitol steps, there were a gathering of people of all colors. Martin Luther King and his followers, the Black Panthers, the Gray Panthers, Corky Gonzalez. They all came out to sing the Song of Hope. The Song of Hope, hope for equality for all people. Today, we still strive to reach that hope for equality for people. Let us never forget that in the Creator's eyes, we are all the same and equal. Let us keep striving to meet the challenge for that hope, for that dream, and let us never forget.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
The next 30 seconds can save you a lot of money. Just do your laundry in cold and stick to full loads. Auto-sleep your computers. Plug your gadgets in a power strip and switch it off when you're done. Headed out? Turn back your thermostat by 10 degrees. And drive sensibly. The more energy you save, the more money you save. Find other great tips at energysaver.gov.
Cook foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer. 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Good day. I'm Dr. Barbara Shannon Bannister, Chief of the Community Relations Division for the City of Aurora. This is my 29th year of leading the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Holiday Committee, and I'm so pleased to be here tonight at Aurora 8 with our community forum. To my extreme right is...
My name is Maya Wheeler. I'm a longtime resident of Aurora, Colorado. I've lived here for over 20 years. I am the president of Colorado Black Women for Political Action and the chair of the Aurora Human Relations Commission. And I'm also involved in Aurora on the Community Housing Partners Board of Directors, which is the nonprofit arm of the Aurora Housing Authority. And I have 3 great children, Daniel, Kimani, and Jeste.
All right.
Right.
And to my close right, okay.
All right, my name is Hashim Coates. I'm a Colorado native. I serve on the City of Aurora Human Relations Commission, and I'm also a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right, okay. And to my left is?
And my name is Gail Pugh. I'm also a native of Colorado, and I have 2 young ladies at home, and I'm also advisor for the Aurora NAACP Youth Council. And so why I became passionate about helping the youth with the NAACP is because of my young kids and kids needing leadership and needing some guidance.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about a movie that was here, Selma, that I hope lots of folks went to see. And we just want to talk about how it impacted us. And anybody can start any place they want to start, in the middle, the end, wherever, and just let's talk about what we saw when that movie was in our area. And nobody wants to say anything. Okay, come on.
No. Well, what I found fascinating about the movie is that I just never realized, like today I think why the dream hasn't been accomplished is because we don't work together. It took everybody working together to get voter rights approved for us. I mean, after Bloody Sunday in Selma, everyone came back, and it was men of faith, like you seen Orthodox priests, you saw regular pastors, but you saw people of all colors coming together to fight for something. And I was just like, well, that's why our dream hasn't been accomplished. Martin Luther King's dream hasn't been accomplished because we don't work together. We're like in silos, you know? It takes all of us coming together. That was just so impressive to me when I saw everybody on the bridge arm in arm, and then seeing black and whites together and young children, especially after you saw all the violence that had went on and seeing people get beat, and then them just come together. I almost start crying.
The movie, I like history movies like that, and I always try to go out and support Black movies. And I really enjoyed the movie. I saw it twice. The first time I saw it, very emotional. There were just parts in there that I was like, wow, what my ancestors, as far back as my mother and my grandparents, you know, which are still alive, you know, my grandmother's still with us, what they experienced. And my grandfather's from Alabama. I mean, my grandmother was born in Mississippi and raised in Little Rock. But just that type of tenacity that Dr. King had, and that his support system had, and that the common everyday person with a sharecropper's education had, and that commitment and the drive to it. But there was a point that you brought up as far as saying that everyone came together. And I just, for me personally, I always want to be careful in regards to that it wasn't everybody. Dr. King wasn't always, he didn't have 100% approval rating and had lots of forces going against him. But one thing about it is he kept acting, he kept moving, and it was persistence and his tenacity that were the key for me.
Okay, great.
I'd like to say the Aurora Youth Council went to view the movie altogether, and so some of the feedback that I received after we debriefed after the movie was that it was inspiring to see that young folks were involved in that movement, as folks such as John Lewis, who is now a U.S. who is in the U.S. House of Representatives. And so it was encouraging for them to see young people in the forefront helping arm in arm with the older folks and accomplishing, you know, the things that they did and walking across that bridge. And that was pretty powerful part in the movie, and it was pretty scary to see how folks were hit and beat up and as they crossed the bridge.
Yes, go ahead.
And so when you're talking about that incident when they're on Bloody Sunday, and one of the young men was killed, what I found interesting is that it said it wasn't just the state trooper that killed that young man. It was every racist white person. It was every pastor who didn't speak up and say something, and it was every black person who didn't do anything. And that just reminds me of Ferguson today. A lot of times people say their vote doesn't matter, but in that movie it showed that no one was held accountable for killing black people who were protesting the right to vote, because when you weren't registered to vote meant you couldn't be a juror. And if you're not a juror, you can't find someone guilty of murdering someone. You know, and they made some remarks like, well, for example, in Ferguson, they say 80% of the people are black, 90% of the police force is white, and kind of the same numbers for the elected officials. And it just makes me think how we don't use our voice to vote. Because in Ferguson, the police chief is appointed by city council or something like that. And so it's people voting there, putting these people into place. So we all have to take our own responsibility when we do not vote. And I hear jokes about people saying, oh, don't vote locally. Well, voting locally is so important.
Where it is.
And we don't have to go as far as Ferguson.
That's right.
We can go right here in Aurora and talk about the vote that 2014 turned out and how did those numbers look. And it just always seems, and it's sad because it seems that the people of color, the main ones that need to vote, are the ones that aren't voting. And it's sad because it seems like it's systematically set up for those type of messages to come out of, well, your vote doesn't matter and it's not worth it.
You can't change anything.
You can't change anything. They're going to put in office who they want to anyway. And those are just myths. Those are myths that those that are in power, in leadership, that don't want to give that up, that don't want to share the pie with the others, love to have that message out. And by believing that, they are fulfilling that prophecy. I mean, there's enough of the pie of power, privilege, wealth, whatever to go around so everybody can not only eat, but they can also get full.
And just to one of the quotes that Martin Luther King said, he who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it. He also accepts evil without protesting against it, is really cooperating with it. So if we don't protest and we don't speak out about bad things that are happening, we're just we're endorsing it.
Right.
We're just letting it happen. We're part of those who did the act, and so we just need to be very, very careful about that. And we need to, in my opinion, mentor our young people who say it doesn't matter, it doesn't count. I'm not going to ever be this, or I'm not going to ever be that. They've lost hope. They've lost the faith that they can be anything they want to be. I mean, we got a president who is half black and half white, and so there's one faction that has been trying to keep him from being successful. But I think history will tell when his story is told and it's written many, many, many years after we're all gone. He had a struggle, but he did what he thought was right for our country.
Right.
Yes.
So, and what else about Selma? You talked about people who were murdered, who were killed. I am a native of New Orleans, but a plant to Casper, Wyoming, and we lived across the street from James Reeb, R-E-E-B, mother and father. And I remember when he was killed in Selma, he was a Unitarian minister, a white Unitarian minister.
Yes.
And that's the only march I ever participated in because I was in the West and not in down South. Had I been down South, I may not be living now because I'm sure I probably would have taken done something somewhere along the line and somebody would have bashed my head in and I'd have been gone. But because I was in Wyoming and we had a peaceful march, but we also had to say to people that if other folks, spit on you, throw things at you, do not retaliate, do not react. And I said, I don't know if I can do this,
Right.
Yes.
but it happens that I wasn't feeling good that day.
Yes.
And so I didn't do anything stupid. I remember Roy Wilkins, who was the head of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, came in and led that march from the courthouse down to the high school. We had one high school, and that's the high school where Cheney graduated from, our former vice president. But Wyoming is a Republican state, so I mean I accept that.
And as you mentioned, the nonviolence.
That's right.
And a lot of times people get that confused and they think that that's a sign of weakness.
No, it is not.
But
that's a very strength.
Right, it is a strength. And hats off
That's right.
to all that can do that because I don't think I possess those type of skills to contribute to the struggle that way. Yeah. So.
I agree. There were parts in that movie, the historical parts that they inserted were just absolutely mind-boggling. Because when I think about it, and I think about Martin Luther King commemoration, and I think about Black History Month, and the films that we watch, it just makes you so sad and makes you so angry that those kinds of things were happening. And now they're happening again.
They're happening. They're still happening, and that's
They're
what's
happening
really
again,
sad.
and you think, haven't we come away from all of that? Yes. What do we have to do? What would you suggest we do? What can we do?
As an individual,
yes,
be that example.
All right.
Not be fearful to speak out. Not be fearful to say that racism is still alive, racism is still active. Racism is beyond the use of the N-word and beyond the burning crosses in your yard and beyond, cowards wearing white pillowcases over their heads to hide their face. It's more systematic and ingrained and not just to raise Black consciousness, but also to raise white consciousness still. This white privilege thing, which is a fruit of racism, that's really what's going on now, and to increase awareness in regards to that will help. And I've decided to live my life that this is the truth. Yes. I'm pro-Black, but my pro-Blackness doesn't mean that I'm anti anything else except stupidity and racism.
Yes. And I say the number one thing you can do is vote and check your voter registration to make sure that your address and everything is correct. Voting is key. And I really think that we need to get more engaged and just stop being people on the sidelines making comments. I mean, if you see something that needs to be done, you need to get involved. I mean, what I thought was so great is that they were so strategic. Like when they were talking about what are they going to ask President Lyndon Johnson, like what are we going to ask them? Because, the things he talked about were negotiating, demonstrating, and resisting. And when he says resisting, meaning standing strong in what you're fighting for. So you just can't go to Lyndon Johnson and say there's injustices. You got to have a proposed bill. So when we're walking out and we're doing things, like what kind of legislation are we asking for? We're not just doing this to do this. We're doing this for a reason. And what do we want to happen?
Well, sometimes I think that's great. And I definitely think that's the plan. But sometimes there's credit to be given to just acting, to just doing, to just making a statement to draw attention. Like the thing that came out as far as now shopping on Black Friday for 2014, it was, I don't know if the proper energies were put towards it, but they did show that there was a decline in spending for Black Friday. So if those type of statements can be made, it's just a nonviolent statement, withholding and protecting and guiding the Black dollar and those that support.
Recycling the Black dollar.
Recycling the Black dollar,
yes.
Like other communities did, like other communities of color and ethnic communities, do within their own community. If we did that, just to do that. I mean, I don't think there has to be a list of demands, but that would definitely grasp attention. You know.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the humanness that you could really realize about Martin Luther King in that movie. He was compassionate about others, about I think I just realized that he's a human being just like me. And I think that was the biggest impact on me, and that he also was including and calling. I think a powerful part of the film was when he called, hey, ministers, preachers, congregations, we need your help. And it speaks to a little bit about what you've both mentioned before, that we cannot do this alone. We have to have whites, blacks, all types of colors in order to create change. And that's what he utilized in that movement in Selma.
And as we talked about a while back, that he was a preacher,
yes,
first and foremost. He was a man of God, a man of the cloth, as we say. And I was impressed with the strategic planning of the marches, etc. Yes. It wasn't just that they gathered on the street corner and said, okay, let's march down to such and such a place. Not that I disregard what you're saying. Sometimes you just take it on and something happens, like the kids walking away from school. They decided, okay, they didn't have necessarily a plan. It was not, are we going to do this for this block or that block, etc. We're just going to do it in numbers to show and march down to the city building and show that we are not happy with what has happened nationally. So that's spontaneous response. But there's something to be said for strategic planning, because let me tell you, they couldn't have marched across that bridge just to get up and do it.
Yes.
So they had to have a plan. And so I was really amazed and really just to see how they were planned. You're going to do this, and you're going to do that, and you're going to do this, and you're going to follow up here, and you're going to make sure that this is happening, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just thought that was just so beautiful. Yes. And I was really impressed with that part of it. I was impressed with the role that Oprah Winfrey played, because she said she wanted to play that woman because that woman was very instrumental in the struggle. And that was, just think how proud that family must feel, that we were there when it all happened.
One thing that stood out to me in the movie that I never thought about before, which is odd, due to the fact that I was raised by a single mother, and was Coretta Scott King's, it made me think about her support, what it actually took for her to support her husband. Yeah, so.
Yes. I mean, he was out there in the fray. Yes. It's like, and what am I trying to say? It's like a parent sitting at home waiting for a daughter or a son to come home, and they're out there partying and something. They know that they're okay, and they're involved in it, and everything is all right with them, but the person sitting at home wondering, are they okay? Has something happened? And just think what she must have endured all those years. Trying to stay home and take care of her children, and her husband was out there just in the mix of it.
Well, in the meantime, she's receiving death threats consistently, on the phone.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
It's sad.
He's got a building named after him.
And, it also reminds me of, I hear lots of times, bringing back home in Colorado, when they wanted to name a portion of I-25 after Dr. King, there was pushback stating that because Dr. King was unfaithful to his wife, that it shouldn't be done. So it spoke in the movie when Dr. King said, they're going to ruin me to ruin the movement. And it's so sad and petty that those are the type of tactics that those parties used then, that they're still using now to derail what's going on, what's really important in regards to that. I mean, and you look at Hoover. He committed illegal activities. It was complete violation of
and he
Fourth Amendment rights.
A lot of
he did.
It wasn't necessarily true.
And it's rare that it seems like the religious right supports people like Hoover, but they negate the whole fact of Hoover's past. I mean, he is a known, documented cross-dresser, but those things are okay, and there's no shame in regards to that. I just want to be clear, there's no shame in regards to that, but those type of things aren't spoken about. Why not? And so I just, that always stands out to me. What about the other side? And then also the talk that came out that LBJ was not portrayed in the best light, the confrontation that he was more supportive of Dr. King. in the march. And I was like, smells like fertilizer when I hear that, because here you have this man, this older white man from Texas in this era. So he woke up every morning saying, yes, today's the day that we push forward for progressive legislation for blacks in this, or for Negroes at the label at that time in this country. No, that is so untrue. And it's documented that LBJ referred to black people as niggers, period. And those are facts. So, yeah, I'm sorry that we can't paint that picture that's more palatable for people.
As you said earlier, we're speaking in our truth.
Right.
And the movie was made to attract attention and to get people to come and watch it.
Yes.
So therefore, I think what literary licensing in terms of how they portrayed people, etc. But I think overall it was a wonderful, a wonderful presentation. It was very timely, and I just think that it will be, hopefully it will get the nod and get a nomination.
Yeah.
And you know, it just it was powerful. Just so much of it brought back so many memories to me. Just I was away from a lot of that in Wyoming, but you know, I was involved in the NAACP all of my life, and in civil rights all of my life. As a young elementary student, helped my father teach people how to read the preamble so they could get the opportunity to vote. Can you imagine that?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and then like in the movie, when Oprah Winfrey went to go register to vote, she had to name all the judges in the counties.
Because she kept saying, I'm okay now, everything. He said, not until I say you are now. And oh yes, and there's X number of counties, we'll name them.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh my Lord, what is this about?
And some of the states in the South have been experiencing some of the same things, trying to have voters
disenfranchised. That's right.
Exactly.
Well, last year, Supreme Court ruled, and they took the teeth out of the Voting Rights Act. And I'm like, how can that be? You know, and what's really sad is Clarence Thomas, a benefactor of all these privileges, a benefactor of affirmative action, you know, but yet now he's like, I have mine, to hell with everyone else. And so he wants to, he's done this type of things, and not just him, you know, we're not there. We are not in the land of milk and honey, but yet for some reason people always want to act like that, and that bothers me. And so one plus though, in regards to the movie that I liked and that I mentioned before, I led out with letting people know that I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Dr. King is also a member of Alpha Phi fraternity. But no, I just
that makes you all right. Okay.
He paved the way.
That's right.
But I just, a lot of, like right now, the historically black fraternities and sororities are kind of taking a little heat right now. We're being criticized. We're not doing enough, and we're never doing enough. To be honest, enough can never be done. But the historical Greek fraternities were monumental and instrumental back then. Reverend Jesse Jackson, Andrew Young, Hosea Williams, you know, and oh my gosh, I can't think.
You will in just a minute. Yes. We're coming to the end of our session. Tell me very quickly, what can you do in response to Selma? What can you do in this community to foster good relationships?
Well, I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing, modeling to my daughters that leadership in your community is important, modeling to the Aurora Youth Council of the NAACP that leadership is important, showing them and guiding them and teaching them about civic engagement.
All right. Quickly?
I'd have to agree with you, Gail. Some of the work that I'm doing with Colorado Black Women for Political Action is that modeling, and also bringing political education to our community so we're more familiar and get comfortable with like going to the Capitol, talking to our legislators, emailing them, calling them. So we'll be doing more of that.
All right.
All right. Just keep doing what I've been doing. Use mass media as a tool to be aware of events. Facebook, for instance. There is it's called Denver Freedom Riders, which it should be Colorado Freedom Riders. It's having an event on the 19th, after the parade, Black Lives Matters. It's a conference that's taking place down at the McNichols
And that's
building.
something that's happened already.
No.
Yes, yeah,
But
because
so that after the parade
yes,
on the 19th of this year.
Uh-huh.
But just to be aware of that and to participate in different marches and sit-ins, and there's things going on right in our own backyard.
Absolutely, we can be mentors.
Yes. Yes.
We can certainly help our young people in terms of technology, referring them places, helping them to realize that they are so important, and showing them what a young man by the name of Lewis did and how close he came to losing his life.
Right.
And look at him today.
More
Look
than
at what
once.
he's doing. And he's still a voice for freedom.
Yes.
And we can all be that voice in your fraternity, and the Colorado Black Women, certainly with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and BSB here in the city of Aurora. We just need to keep working, keep praying, keep praising, and keep lifting each other up. And keeping in touch with each other and supporting each other.
Right.
And of course, mentoring our young people. We're just so happy to have had this privilege to have you as guest on talking about Selma, S-E-L-M-A.
Right.
Selma was a great movie, and I'm glad you got a chance to see it. God bless and thank you for watching.